Why does the world need Fashion Week? Over 300 million people on this planet work within the fashion industry. From design and manufacturing to production to e-commerce and to retail, it is the second biggest employer in the world after agriculture. Every year, over 1 billion articles of clothing are created. And currently, $2.4 trillion are spent every year on fashion and footwear alone. That's the size of the entire French economy. Fashion isn't just about glamour, and it's certainly not something frivolous. In fact, with 300 million people employed within the fashion industry, that's almost the entire population of the United States of America. In fashion, we have 4 major capitals: New York, London, Milan, and Paris. Twice a year, all of the decision makers in the fashion world gather together in those 4 major cities. For fashion brands that want to participate in those fashion weeks, they must pay 5-figure fees in order to appear on those official programs, and then fund their own fashion shows. But what about those small, independent, emerging, or young designers who are just starting out? How do the makeup artists and the hairstylists, how does everyone else that works within that fashion industry get involved and get to make their mark or potentially create a career globally if they don't live in one of those 4 fashion capitals? I believe that's why we needed to create a fashion week of the future. My name is Ashley McDonnell, and I'm the founder of Ireland Fashion Week. In October 2024, I was being interviewed by the incredible Charlotte Ryan, a journalist with RTE, our national broadcaster. Charlotte asked me, what is next for fashion in Ireland? And with absolute confidence, I said, it's Ireland Fashion Week, and I'm going to do it. That was the first time I'd ever had that thought. Luckily, it wasn't a live interview, so I immediately went and bought the website domain. I got the Instagram handle, the TikTok handle, and made sure I at least had secured all of those things. And then I thought, I'm just going to see what happens. The next day, the interview goes live, and I received hundreds of messages, emails, you name it. I was getting calls from all over the world, not just from people in Ireland, but from the Irish diaspora, especially within the fashion ecosystem, who would have dreamed to have had an Ireland Fashion Week at home when they were starting out their careers. So for a couple of weeks, I kept getting these messages. I said, it's going to come. It's going to be October next year. I was giving myself a year, right? A year is really far away. A couple of months pass. I have made absolutely no progress on Ireland Fashion Week. And then comes March. I had a little bit more time. I was working full-time in Paris in a really demanding role as director of one of the largest luxury groups in the world. I had a moment where I said, I'm going to post on Instagram. The post said, Ireland Fashion Week, October 6th to 10th, 2025. At this point, I was really getting ready for a sprint because I knew that I had committed to doing this, and that meant I was going to do it. So what followed? Well, I believe we actually created the blueprint for the Fashion Week of the future. Step 1 was creating that vision. What was that week going to look like? What are all the flaws and problems that we have in the fashion industry that we can address with building this Fashion Week of the future? One of those was the finances. I wanted to create a fashion week that really turned the concept upside down. And rather than designers having to pay to participate and fund their own shows, that we would actually subsidize 90 to 100% of the cost of their show production, whether it was lights, staging, models, photographers, videographers, even down to sending the invitations. We knew that if we were able to create that as an organization, then fashion designers in Ireland would have access and be able to participate in a fashion week that had that global standard. But how do you do that? Well, it started with a 12-minute voice note, the thing that we absolutely never want to receive. But I was the one sending it. And on the other end was my first employee, Alicia O'Connell, an amazing Irish woman also living in Paris and working in fashion. Leisha turned that 12-minute voice note into a 30-page presentation, and that became really our blueprint. It became our Bible for the concept of Ireland Fashion Week. And in there, we created the idea around the 7 fashion shows of the inaugural Ireland Fashion Week. So what were they? We wanted to be able to demonstrate the diversity that we have in our country, not just in people and cultures, but also in the type of fashion that we would be able to showcase. We created 5 solo show concepts, meaning for one designer to put 30 to 50 looks down a runway. The first show that we created the idea for was Heritage, and the dream was to bring home a heritage designer back to Ireland, someone we couldn't have supported 20, 30, 40 years ago when they were starting out, but that we could actually honor today. The goal was to have Paul Costello. We then created another show called Modern Heritage, and that was really for the future Paul Costello of Ireland, someone that was using Irish heritage textiles and really loved our country and wanted to showcase it through their designs. Our third show was Streetwear. Our fourth was Sportswear, which people laughed at, but it was incredible. And our fifth was the Contemporary show, to show what we have in modern Ireland in terms of contemporary Irish fashion design. But we didn't stop there, because even if we were financing 90 to 100% of the cost of those shows, designers still needed to have the teams to be able to create those collections, which isn't accessible for all. So we created a show called Irish Roots, which included 8 to 10 designers putting 4 looks each down the runway. And then lastly, this was really the crown jewel in our 7 shows of Ireland Fashion Week. It was our Young Designers show. We opened up 40 spaces for 40 young designers, either currently studying fashion or who have graduated within the last 3 years. And we committed to 100% subsidizing the cost of that show. Of course, we encouraged upcycling, recycling, reusing materials that already existed, so that with that one look these selected designers would create, that they wouldn't have to spend anything on those textiles or materials. The theme was the Irish Sea, and that was so that we could have a really coherent look and feel to the show, all the way down to the music, for these 40 young designers coming from all 4 corners of the island, most of whom had never even met before. But we didn't stop there. It's not enough just to finance a fashion week. It's really important to build that ecosystem, to share the knowledge, and to build connections. We ran a series of boot camps, kicking them off at Google's headquarters in Dublin, and bringing over speakers from the rest of the world, from those 4 fashion capitals, to share their experiences, and also to give them connections within the industry that they could look up to. But how do you make the fashion week happen? Our biggest barrier, of course, was how to finance it. I had committed to €1 million in support for Irish fashion designers to produce this week. Where were we going to find that money? That's the question that everyone was asking. But I had a vision. If we created Ireland Fashion Week into a platform that other brands wanted to be associated with, we would be able to bring on some of the biggest partners in the world that would really believe in our vision and not only want to contribute financially, but want to be a part of that. We had some of the biggest brands from around the world reach out to us, and of course we were knocking on every door in Ireland and abroad. Finally, October 2025 arrives. It's 1 year after that moment when I shared that I was going to launch Ireland Fashion Week. That week alone, we employed over 500 people in Ireland directly. Not only did we reach our €1 million of support, but we exceeded it, landing at €1.4 million in production value across the week. We wanted to reach 100 million people with our first Ireland Fashion Week. We reached over 500 million globally. Nobody could hide from us. We wanted to have at least 50 designers included in the first Ireland Fashion Week. We had 54 send looks down the runway. And most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we brought home a heritage designer that deserved that support and that platform and to be recognized at home. That would make all of the other fashion designers stand taller and have someone to look up to, someone from home that they could relate to. And of course, that was the late Paul Costello. Little did we know at the time, we produced his grand finale, his final fashion show. And what an honor that was to bring him home to City Hall in Dublin and showcase his incredible creativity, not just to Ireland, but to the rest of the world. My name is Ashley McDonnell. I believe that we have created the Fashion Week of the future that anyone around the world could replicate in their own country. Thank you so much for listening to my TEDx.